Hello and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Henry Ogden, and today we have the 3 Republican candidates for Union County Freeholder. And we have to my left, Patricia Quattrocchi, a former mayor of Garwood. To my right, Joe Sarno, former councilman in Garwood, and Peter Kane from Summit, very distinguished gentleman. And I thought we would start by asking each of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves. So, Pat, why don't we start with you?
No problem. Thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. We really appreciate it. I am a Union County gal, born and bred in Union County, as are my father and my grandmother, so I'm deeply embedded in the county. I currently live in Clark. I was the mayor of Garwood and elected to a 4-year term. I am a mother of 7 children, 5 boys and 2 girls, wow. A wife, and as you mentioned, the former mayor of Garwood. I also was the director of the domestic violence team for Central Union County, responsible for 5 municipalities. Former president of the Garwood Lions Club, and I'm a retired headhunter. Spent 25 years in executive search. Some people call us corporate raiders, and that's what we did. And they'll say to me, well, I never heard of your firm, and I tell them, you're not supposed to have heard of my firm. It was a wonderful job, and I enjoyed it, and I think it brings a lot to my candidacy as far as being able to recruit people to volunteer and work and handle very large contracts, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to Election Day and being successful.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Joe?
Hey. Thank you very much for having us here today. Former councilman in Garwood, yes, that was just that a few years ago. I was elected in 2015, started serving in 2016. Learned a lot. I learned a lot working with an $8 million budget in Garwood and being the budget guy. I have an accounting degree. Okay. And I worked there for 13 years. And so I have a little bit of a professional experience that goes along with it. Learned a lot, and I want to take that experience and bring it here to the Freeholder Board. I'm also a new homeowner here in Union County. I'm not originally from here. I can't say that. I'm actually originally from Ocean County. Okay. And I did the reverse move, right?
Most people go the other way.
Most people go the other. So
that's all right.
What I like to tell people, you know, down there, I mean, in the Pine Barrens, I mean, very tight on budgets. You know, we don't like to borrow a whole lot, and when we do pay for things, we want to make sure we've saved up enough and don't incur all the interest that goes along with it. And I think what we're going to hear today is a similar platform when we talk about this $480 million budget that's here in Union County. So
good. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Henry. As Joe mentioned, I am also not a native of Union County. I'm a relative newcomer to Summit, only having moved here 53 years ago. I was born in Brooklyn, where my mother was born and raised, and she decided that after the Dodgers moved west, we may as well move west to New Jersey as well. But I have never run before for office. I have been very much involved in public service and political engagement. In fact, Henry, you and I don't know if you remember, first met formally back in 1982 on Millicent Fenwick's U.S. Senate campaign.
Yes,
a wonderful lady and a wonderful example of bipartisanship and what I think we all should aspire to. But I have spent the better part of the last 30, 35 years working in and around business. At various global banks, global brokerage firms. I've managed large organizations, many different types of people, primarily focused on technology, efficiency, productivity, and so on. And I just recently took a new job that feeds my volunteer soul better. I was just named the new president of Marist High School in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Congratulations.
So it's a bit of a pivot for me, and really, really enjoying it. But I decided to run this year for really just 1 or 2 basic reasons, which is that I believe that one-party government, regardless of what the party is, doesn't serve the people well. There needs to be checks and balances. I think one of the best ways to provide those checks and balances is to have at least some representation from each party. And I look forward to one of us winning and taking the place that used to be held by our dear friend, Frank Lair, the former mayor of New York, of Summit, who was the last Republican freeholder to serve, and he was defeated 21 years ago by the gentleman that we're running against. So thank you again, Henry. I look forward to this discussion.
Well, why don't we start with county taxes and the county budget, because we've heard that, and of course, as a homeowner, you're enjoying these Union County taxes.
I can't say I'm enjoying them.
But I'd be curious to hear, We've heard being a headhunter, we've heard an accountant, we've heard of productivity and increasing that. I'd be curious, how would you bring your skill sets to bear as a freeholder in charge of a budget like the size of the counties? I don't know.
Well, Henry, actually, one of the things that really struck me when I took on the research to make this run is I took a look at some of the budgets around us. So today, sitting here today, the budget for Union County is about $506 million a year, $500 million a year.
Wow.
Our population is about that. It's about 500,000 people. Just next door in Morris County, the population is about the same, and yet their total county budget is $360 million a year. So it sort of begs the question, why in two counties adjacent to each other with similar populations are we spending $140, $150 million more in Union County than is Morris County?
I think we're smaller geographically also, aren't we?
We are, but
Yeah.
but in fact, the Freeholder board in Morris County has been controlled by one party for many years, that being the Republican Party. It seems to suggest to me that the Republicans are better at managing budgets and managing taxes, and that's something I think that I and my running mates fully believe in.
100%. I mean, you can even go down to Ocean County, similar population, 575,000 people, even a little bit more. Their budget's just over $400 million. So again, it's $100 million more up here. I understand things may cost a little bit more, but not $100 million more.
Yeah.
That's why I want to bring my experience. And what things I do every day, what we do is we compare actual to budget, and we do commentary on each one of these items. So that way we understand exactly what happened in each month and each quarter, and we're very transparent in what we do. I can't say the same about this Freeholder board. I'm sitting here putting in different requests to get information about different projects that have happened and where the different bids have gone out to for construction companies and contractors, and it's a hard time getting that information, finding out where it's going, and what we need to do is be more transparent in government. I was able to do that in Garwood. We did a lot of our meetings. We were able to just go out and explain the process, you know, step by step, why we go out to bid, where we are in the process, how become an ordinance becomes, you know, it starts off at the first reading to the second reading, and get it to the point it needs to go. So that's what I want to bring to the table. And
so you've submitted like public record requests, and they've just been denied or unanswered, or
very vague answers, you know, delayed answers as well. It's taken a few weeks, so it's also you have to dig a little bit into the minutes. You have to really do your research. It's not going to come out and stick out at you. It really isn't. And
heavily redacted, right? It begs the question: why are they redacting so much information?
You're right, Peter.
Interesting. Pat, what are your thoughts about the county budget and the taxes in the county?
Working as a headhunter, you work with people on a very personal level. You have to remember, you're trying to advance their careers, and along with career advancement, very often come discussions about salary, travel, or, you know, what people expect from a job. I think that gives me the insight into everyone's everyday life. And I think one of the things that our Board of Chosen Freeholders has lost track of is what is actually going on with the residents and the people, and how their taxes affect them on a very personal level. A couple towns in Union County, one of which was Summit, and Westfield, that actually spend more money, send more of their tax dollars rather to the county than you keep to run your own government up here in Summit. So to me, that just doesn't seem to be fair. I think there's a lot of ways that they can make changes in what they're spending money on, and that would be something that goes along with what Joe and what Peter said about Ocean County and Morris County. What is it that they're doing better than we're doing here? Are there services that they're not offering that we're wasting money on? One of the things that I came across was when they replace county bridges, they put these big plaques on that are these big brass plaques that are all engraved, and it's like they're making a monument to everyone. And when you go back and you look at the things that were built like 20 years ago, they're not on there. So it doesn't sound like a lot, and that goes back to what I said about pennies making dollars and dollars make sense. When you start replacing 10 bridges and each plaque is going to cost you $1,000, you know, do the math. So what can they do? I think one of the first things that I would do would be what I did when I was mayor, is go in and tell every department head, just for a start, don't shake them up too much, but I want you to cut off at least 2% out of your budget before you come to me. And we'll go from there. And then you cut it with you know, gently with a scalpel instead of a meat cleaver.
Now, would you say that this is the biggest issue facing the county at this point? Just the high level of taxes and the unsustainability of the spending?
I think it's a combination. So clearly, living in New Jersey has been very much, the on the lips of everyone, that the overall tax burden that we are carrying, we in New Jersey, we in Union County in particular, it's unsustainable. Many people, our parents, our elderly parents, are moving out of the state because they can't afford to. Those of us with younger children who are graduating and going elsewhere because they just can't afford to live here. So I think certainly the economic argument is an important one. But just as important, Henry, is, I believe, the lack of transparency. There is an awful lot going on at county government that people don't know about. And in fact, one of the things that I'm most interested in doing is putting myself out of a job. In fact, I believe that we should eliminate county government completely. Rhode Island has eliminated all of their county government. Connecticut has eliminated all of their county government. Massachusetts is well on their way to eliminating county government. Those are three very comparable northeastern, high-expense blue states, and yet they seem to have been able to do without county government. Why do we insist on doing it? And in fact, I believe that the legislature, the Senate President, and others are trying to double down. They're trying to move more things, namely some of the schools' oversight, to the counties, and to consolidate their power to the detriment of the taxpayers. So I would be very interested in being a one-term freeholder and getting rid of my job and getting rid of county government completely after 3 years.
Well, from your lips, but I think that's a pretty tough.
It's a tall order.
Yeah.
It's a tall order.
Because we actually tried that.
I was going to say Summit, number of
back
years
in the
ago,
day,
back in about 2004, 2005, did a study on what the county does for municipal government using Summit as the main, study area.
Template,
And what you came up with really was, well, they were really responsible for your health, safety, and your welfare. So that would be your roads, your jails, which is something that you're not going to do locally, and some health services. But otherwise, what do you really need them for? Do you really need them to plan your Sunday afternoon activities in the park? No.
Right.
You can do that for yourself.
Right.
So I go along with Peter. It's something that I've looked at and a number of people have looked at with regard to just eliminating county government altogether. Might be a little difficult in some of the more rural areas, which count on their county police and fire. But up here where we are is certainly very feasible.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's so entrenched because both parties have their fiefdoms in different parts of the state.
True.
And to get rid of it, you'd have to get agreement. And they're never going to give up, the golden goose that keeps the patronage flowing or whatever.
Imagine that, the two parties agreeing on something, Henry. You're right. It shouldn't be such a far-fetched concept, but sitting here today, it is. And that's exactly the problem we're trying to break.
Keep in mind, what else is happening is these governments are taking over a lot of the local services that you're seeing.
Right.
You're seeing the fire department in Union County having more of an influence. You're seeing the ambulance services have more of an influence. And it's going to grow from there. You're like Patricia was just bringing up. I mean, you're seeing Sundays in the parks and a lot of these other different programs that normally used to be sponsored by different organizations. Right. Instead of partnering up and putting the extra effort in to do these kind of things, what they're doing is just taking over the ownership of it and then marketing themselves for future campaigns. To me, I have a real problem with this. I have a real problem with the way that they market themselves, constantly putting themselves in social media. They have a health and wellness center, right, for example, that they just opened up into the Watchung Reservation. While a novel concept in trying to provide trailside experience to those that may be handicapped, I think they just go way overboard on the cost. And where do you see that number in the line item? It's buried in debt. And you're talking a $500 million budget, but you also have over $500 million in debt as well.
So the health and wellness center that you're talking about, the trailside at Watchung Reservation, that is mainly to allow to have the handicap be accessible through the reservation to take them on trail rides?
That is a part of it, yeah. So they'll have, if you're for the blind, and you'll have different Braille readings and things like that to help those that are disadvantaged. And I think that's a great concept. But again, you start to see the different bells and whistles that go into these different programs, and you start to see the fancy signs, as Patricia just brought up. They just take things to the next level. I mean, they just redid the center in Warrenenko, right? They just did the ice hockey rink, right, Peter?
Yep.
I mean, another tens of millions of dollars that they just go overboard on the spending. Instead of partnering up with private businesses to do these things, they take it upon themselves. And what ends up happening is a couple things, right? only certain contractors get these bids, right? And what does that do when you have a 9-0 rule in the Freeholder board?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know the answer, right? It's almost like you're paying a 10% surcharge because you have the same party with the same vendors and the same engineers and the same consultants all the time. That's why you need a watchdog. That's why you need us to be there.
And Henry, as Joe said, they're looking at the spending side and they're going a little bit out of control on the spending side and passing on reasonable opportunities for savings. What do I mean by that? So we are right now sitting here today the only county among the 21 in New Jersey that haven't yet looked at and started consolidating the Sheriff's Office and the County Police. By consolidating the Union County Sheriff's Office and the Union County Police Department, we would save 53 police officer headcount.
Wow.
Now, the average salary and pension benefits for a police officer, as you well know from your time on the municipal council, can reach $1 million over the course of a career. So we could, with that consolidation, we could make a real big impact on county government from a savings perspective. Why is Union County the only county not looking at that?
Yeah, excellent question. Well, Union County is sort of unique in that it has a county manager form of government, which of the other 21, I don't think anyone else has that.
No.
Does anyone want to just talk about the new county manager with the qualifications or?
Well, being a headhunter and interested in employment, I ask everybody, and I probably at some point asked all of you as well, what do you do? What's your job like? Who do you work for? So it's one of those things that I'll probably look at forever. So I put in a request and I did receive his resume. And in reviewing it and looking at what the duties were of the county manager, which are outlined in their bylaws and their codes, which is online, by the way. The gentleman who they selected really does not meet the criteria necessary to do that job. His prior experience was working for 3 separate offices, and I'm trying to, at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how you're in all 3 places at once. Thank you very much. He happens to have it here. And that's one thing. The other thing is the staffs that he managed were very small, maybe 2 or 3 people. He doesn't really even talk about it in here, about his actual management type of experience, and that was one thing. So if I were reviewing his resume to fill that job, I probably would have bypassed the resume. It would have gone in the round file. The other thing about it is that most of his experience prior was working on campaigns. Campaigns are a whole lot different than actually being deep in the trenches in government.
Yes.
And working. He doesn't have the experiences of managing a sizable corporation. There's well over 2,000 employees there.
He doesn't even live in the county.
No, he does not.
Really?
No.
And
He had to get a special dispensation for that.
He's a resident of Colonia, right? And what this is a political appointment. That's exactly what this is. You're working in a Democratic campaign, starting with the McGreevey campaign, working your way up as the chief of staff to Nick Scuteri, state senator out of Linden, District 22. You know, that to me just speaks volumes. You took your chief of staff and made him the county manager, and what's his salary, Peter?
About $168,000.
I
Wow.
mean, come on.
Wow.
We want someone that has experience managing in some kind of government, right? Or some kind of business that you could come into and live in Union County. That's not a whole lot to ask for. We have one of the best workforces in the country. You know, and I want to go out there and prop that up in the right way. You want to attract the Amazons of the world, right? And before I go off on a tangent there, what I want to do is talk about that we have enough people in this county to fill the job right. Don't put political appointees in there.
Oh, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
He was hired on.
Another patronage hire.
Yes, and he was hired on, and he had it was a very steep learning curve, where we had 2 county managers employed at the same time. I look at government as a business. Which is why I was one of the people way at the beginning who supported Donald Trump. I did. I felt that after having been mayor, I could see that this is a business and it needs to be run that way now. Things are not like they were years ago.
Right.
You know, it's different now. There's a lot more paperwork involved. There's a lot more follow-up involved. Things are just not the same. So you need to have someone, I believe, who I would love to see, you know, a mid-level person come out of a major corporation to take this job.
Yeah.
And I think that's doable.
Well, again,
someone out of banking would be great.
That would be wonderful.
So the Courier News did an expose not just on Union County, but on elected officials through county government and elected officials throughout New Jersey. and they highlighted the fact that many county governments in particular, but also some of the individual development corporations, have their employees under what could only be called Cadillac or Platinum health benefits. But I pledge, and I believe my running mates pledge, that we don't need health benefits for a part-time position, and I would pledge right here today that I will not accept health benefits if I'm elected freeholder.
Once again, you'd save money if you were elected.
We go into contract negotiations, right? And Patricia, you know this, being the former mayor. We go in we talk to the local police department, right? We're talking to the PBA, we talk to the local that represents our DPW, and we start talking about contracts and health benefits. How can I go into that room, right, and give a fair deal when I have the creme de la creme?
That's right.
Of the health benefits.
That's right.
You know, I didn't take a stipend in Garwood, and we should pledge to even consider what we get now, but also I will not take health benefits because it definitely compromises you when you go into these negotiations, and you have so many different unions that you're going to have to represent in county government, more so than you do in Little Garwood.
Yeah. Right. Now, very briefly, well, tell me about the Roselle Community Center and the library.
Oh, the Health and Wellness Center?
No, the Roselle. So you and I were talking about
Mind
this
and Body Complex.
Mind and Body Complex.
So I'll start off, but it isn't my wheelhouse. So our understanding, Henry, is that the Union County Development Corporation, which is a separate entity, but also takes on debt service and issues bonds that we, the county tax holders, are responsible for. Part of the $600 million in debt, we believe that it's hidden. So the $600 million in debt that we are aware of may not be accounting for all of these other individual development corporations, but I digress. The Union County Development Corporation issued bonds, something in the order of $59 million, to build for the city of Roselle a library and a community center. The community had not necessarily asked for this.
Wow.
We're not sure why the Freeholder Board, in working with the Development Corporation, issued these bonds. What's more interesting, though, Henry, is that less than 2 months later, they withdrew the bond offering and said, "Oh, forget about it. We don't really want to do this project." So how does a development project for a brand new community center and library? You know, here in Summit, we've built a new library. We're building a new community center. It's something that takes years of planning, getting the stakeholders bought in, and so on.
Lots of community input.
Lots of community input to make that decision and then reverse it under the cloak of darkness in meetings that aren't being fully disclosed in terms of meeting minutes. It raises too many questions, and we don't have the answers.
Yeah.
One of the things that, with regard to this, the bonding from the Improvement Authority, though the people in Roselle would have been paying the debt service off at the beginning and it was guaranteed, the amount that their taxes were calculated to increase, they had 3 different amounts. First they said it would go up $300, and they said $400, or last it was a $500 increase in municipal taxes per household. The people in Roselle, we're not talking here about Summit or Westfield or, they're at a lower income level. They have a lot of foreclosures in that town. These people cannot afford this, and for the freeholders to try and sign off on what the Improvement Authority was doing, I found it to be totally unethical. Knowing some people who live in Roselle, in fact many who live in Roselle, they were all appalled. They're like, what are they doing this to me for? And it's not a simple community center. It included a pool and numerous computer labs, and they were also teaming up with the Board of Education to put an early childhood learning center there. This was a monumental project, bigger than Garwood would never, bigger than what Summit was doing.
Think about it. This project started at in the first couple meetings, a $16 million project. Then this thing ballooned up to almost $60 million, as Peter just mentioned. And if you do debt financing on that, it's a $100 million project. How are you okay with this? And if Roselle defaulted on their bonds, and they're almost at junk bond status in Roselle, right? If they default on it, guess who gets to pick up the tab?
The county.
The county. All of us are left here.
That's right.
It goes right to the rest of us.
That's right. Well, we have just a few minutes left, so what I thought I'd do is just, if you could each just sort of summarize your pitch, your speech as to why people select you, besides, with all the accounting background. I guess we should do the reverse. We'll start with you, Peter.
So thank you, Henry. Thank you very much, and thank you, TV 36, Hometown Television. This is exactly what government is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about openness, transparency, and discussion. I can only hope that our worthy opponents will make themselves available to this sort of forum as well. But regardless, I'm running because I believe that there needs to be more openness and transparency and lower taxes for Union County residents. I want to stay in this wonderful community that I've lived in for so many years, in this wonderful county. I want my 2 children to come back and live here. I want my grandchildren to live here. That won't be possible if we don't make a change in government at county level this November. So I ask for your support, and I would be delighted to serve as your next freeholder. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you, Henry. Really appreciate the time here. Thank you to Hometown for doing this and putting us on the air. I really appreciate it. You're doing a great service to all the communities that you serve. One of the first things I looked at when I was a homeowner is I noticed that my county taxes were more than my municipal taxes, and I shook my head. My first ever tax bill, I get that realization. I want to do something about it. That's why I'm here today. I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to look at this budget and turn it upside down, because Union County is such a special place. It's diverse. It's got great people all around, from all different ethnic backgrounds, from all different educational backgrounds, and from all different walks of life. We have such an opportunity to bring great companies into here, into our communities, and we have an opportunity to really grow. But when you have a county government that's run amok and has really just have debt ballooning on itself, we have interest payments that are in tens of millions of dollars, you force people out of the state. You force our elderly out. You force our younger generations to stay down wherever they're going to college. They don't come back. We have to do something about it. And that's why I urge you to vote for this team and vote for column B. Vote for your Republican freeholder candidates, and Patricia Quattrocchi, Peter Kane, and myself, Joe Sarno. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Patricia?
I want to thank, first of all, you, Henry, for taking out of your time to come and speak with us. I also want to thank Peter and Joe for being willing to step up with me to challenge the opposing party and to break the deadlock that is in place in county government. It is a 9-0 freeholder board. I call them the Gang of 9. I have been fighting to bring transparency, to bring taxes under control. As I mentioned, I am the mother of 7. I would love nothing better to have all 7 of my kids and all of my grandchildren living here in Union County with me. I don't intend on moving out. My husband and I will be here. Fortunately, I have several grandchildren, and one of my families, that's what I call them, my families, are in Somerset County. Another one is in Essex County. There's only one here in Union County. And then I have 2 children who are unattached. Who knows where they're going to go? But it is very important to me to be able to have my children live here. Things are hard enough for young people with trying to buy a house, with the cost of things up in this part of the United States. Our money does not go as far as in some other parts of the country, especially with our housing costs. And when you get into a situation where your cost of housing costs half of your income, there's a definite problem there. One of the first places, after having gotten, taken a look at the town and realizing how much meddling the county attempts to do and what goes on in municipal government, I find it at this point in my career either more appalling than when I originally embarked on politics. Things just have gotten to the point where you feel like you're being strangled by the county. There was one resident in Garwood who inquired to the former mayor, what have the freeholders done for you? And he sat down and he thought, and his reply was, well, I think they fixed our snow blower once. That's appalling when the amount of money that you send to the county and all you get back is a repair on your snow blower? Excuse me. It's time for a change. It's time to say no to 9-0, and the residents need to look to themselves to make this change. We cannot do it without your help. So get out there, vote Republican on November 6th. We're counting on you. Take a chance on us. What do you got to lose?
And if there are any viewers that wanted further information, is there a website or somewhere they could go to?
You can find us on Facebook.
Yes.
On Facebook, okay.
Yes, we have our page there. It is Quattrocchi, Kane, and Sarno for Freeholder.
Okay.
You can just put a quick search in there and you'll find it.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank all 3 of you very much for coming today. I appreciate that. Patricia Quattrocchi,
yes.
Thank you. Joe Sarno, Peter Kane, good luck to you as you continue on the campaign trail. I'd like to remind all of the viewers to please vote on Tuesday, November 6th. And if you have any further questions, or if you want to watch this again, it's available on hometowntv.org. And I thank you very much for watching Meet the Candidates.